You'll see there, it's been changed in one spot, but not the other. We found out last minute. Brendan Moscato with the AAA Plus. Last minute couldn't be here, but he's being replaced by Joey Wynn, who's on his board of directors and who's the policy advocacy person at Railroad House.
Fan club, huh?
Is that funny?
No, the wolf wasn't watched.
So anyway, that's a change in the program. A couple of other announcements. Where's Charles Fletcher? You in here? Okay. You want to come up here, Charles? And you know, every year one of the things we do at this conference is, and we do something different usually each year, and that's to remember the people that are no longer with us. A lot of them who have been participants in this conference, and people that were so close and dear to us in our heart. And every year we try to do some type of a memorial. And so we came up with an idea this year that's a little bit different than what we've done in the past. And weather permitting, and we'll stay tuned and we'll let you know if there's a change. But hopefully this afternoon we'll be out on the beach this afternoon between the 4:30 and 6:30 time frame. That's free time. And this is optional. You don't have to attend. Last year we did the thing on the beach and about 40 people participated where we spread rose petals in the water and did a little memorial service. This year I've asked Charles, who runs the Colorado ManReach program, which is a program for gay and bisexual men for health and well-being, not just HIV, but a comprehensive program for gay men. And one of the things they do is a heart circle where you pass a stone around and everybody gets an opportunity to talk. And I'm going to tell Charles, or ask him to come and tell you a little bit about how that works. And if you're interested, this afternoon we'll be gathering on the beach to participate in this very meaningful experience. Charles?
Welcome, everybody. Butch pretty much explained the piece of the heart circle. It's quite simple. It's passing around a stone with intention, and if you feel so moved, to speak with a few words. And we thought that this might be a way of both introducing the heart circle and adding to the dimension of this tradition that's been going on for many years and remembering the ones that we've lost. I don't really need to say much more than that except invite you to come join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Also, we're going to have a little change in the schedule this morning. I didn't realize, I know it was cloudy yesterday. I didn't realize we had such bad weather in Fort Walton. It seems like a lot of flights that were due in here last night got canceled, and they were all towed because Fort Walton was having storms. I don't know where they were in Fort Walton last night, but there was no storms.
Solar storms.
So our keynote speaker this morning was one of those people. His plane should be landing about right now. So he called me last night in a panic saying, I'm in Charlotte and they canceled my flight. What am I going to do? And I said, don't worry about it. We'll just shift you and put you later in the schedule. So Kala will be here a little bit later this morning. But we're going to go ahead and get started with the grassroots portion of ActivateU. I want at this time my two facilitators for this program, Jesse Fry, who is the co-chair of the Florida HIV/AIDS Advocacy Network. I mentioned Joey a while ago. He's the other co-chair. And then Rick Vitale with the Florida Department of Health. He works in Mariana at the health department there. He's the other facilitator for the grassroots training for ActivateU. So would the two of you like to come up?
Yes.
And also we'll talk about it again at the end. You were given a survey when you arrived. And that survey is very critical for us to have information as we plan future ActivateUs. It's also very critical to our funders who we have to answer to. And part of our funding is that we do evaluations and we can show and demonstrate how the training we bring to you guys that you utilize throughout the year. And so after you do the survey here, we're going to do a follow-up with you every quarter. You'll be mailed one or emailed one and ask that you complete it with an update of things like what you have been doing, how many contacts you may have made with your legislative people, what advocacy you're doing in your community, and So we just need a follow-up so we know that you're out there doing the work that needs to be done. There's no more important work in this economy than advocacy. We are hurting, folks, and we need everybody to be speaking up and speaking out. We can't be shy anymore. We have to be forceful. And so hopefully that's it. Thank you. It's so critical. And hopefully we can give you the tools. Part of our grassroots training is to get people ready to become advocates. Now, a lot of you are longtime advocates, and I know, and some of this will be a review for you, but not only a review, but you can share with us ideas of what's been working for you as advocates in your long history of that. Some of people are newly diagnosed, a lot of people are new to advocacy. So this trainings that we're doing this morning is very crucial to them, to get them ready to go talk to legislative officials, to do those letters and emails. And because so often we expect, well, you know, we're guilty in this community of putting people on buses to go places and not giving them the tools. They get there and not sure why they're there, what they need to do, and they're frightened. Or they go to meet with the legislator and they're all set to tell their life story and find out they have less than a minute to do that. It's real frustrating. So we try to give you all the tools that will help you so you don't experience that frustration. A lot of people are frustrated when they don't get to see their actual member of Congress. It's more valuable to see their aide, their health care aide, because they're the ones that's going to educate the member, and you're going to have a lot more time with them than you would that particular member. So don't ever be frustrated that you may not have gotten to see the member. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jesse right now.
This is quite a view from up here. It's so cool to see everybody here. Let me just show of hands. If this is your first Positive Living conference, raise your hand. Look at that. That's by Rachel's stats. By Rachel's stats, there's something like 170 first-timers. So that's pretty cool. Now, I know some people couldn't come to ActivateU this morning, but for how many people is this the first time you've been to an ActivateU? Okay, almost the same. Well, that first 170 and then plus a few. Cool. So I just want to go over a couple ground rules, and then I'm going to reintroduce Rick Vitale, and then we're going to see a film. And I'm not going to spoil any of Rick's intro, and I'll just go through it. Every year that we do ActivateU, we always take evaluations, and we use that evaluation data to kind of form the ground rules for how we're going to run the meeting next year, right? So we want to strive to stay on schedule. It's going to be a little tough to do with the travel snafus. We'll respect break time, meaning when we're on break, we're on break. When we're not on break, we're working. We'll come back from breaks on time. We'll always give it 3, 2, 1 and say when the return time is. And we'll if we voice criticisms of anything, we'll also strive to offer a solution or, go ahead and applaud that if you're going to applaud. Okay. Solution or applaud it, because, there's plenty of griping in this one, right? More solutions. I'm for more solutions. Okay. If you're in the other room, you're hearing this voice, this detached from a body voice, because we don't have video in there, I don't think, this morning. Come on in and join us when you're done eating, because the program is going to be all in this room today, okay, until we break at 3:15 for a break and then the breakout session. And the last point is if we need to move on, regardless of what the schedule says, there's going to be some time constraints built into this meeting just because of the travel issues that we've had so far this morning. So, on that note, that's all the rules. And I'm going to introduce to you Rick Vitale, who is my co-chairman of the Advocacy Committee of Florida HIV/AIDS Advocacy Network. And he works at Jackson County Health Department, the guru of HIV/AIDS world in Jackson County, Florida. So he's going to tell you about it.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Rick, and I'm with the Jackson County Health Department. And if you don't know where Jackson County is, it's that obscure little county Northwest Florida, otherwise known as LA, Lower Alabama. Yes. I'm also a person living with HIV for approximately 28 years. As Butch was speaking earlier about advocacy, it's one of the main things that everyone in this room needs to be involved in. Advocacy is so important. Our stories tell the people who need to know what it is like living with HIV and AIDS. And it's very important that they know these things because basically it comes down to funding, and it is dollars and cents. We strive to make our stories known. However, over the years, we've gotten a little bit complacent. With that, monies have been dwindling. People are being placed on wait lists through either ADAP or AICP, which is the Agent Search Continuation Program. That's unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. It's up to us to get off our seats, so to speak, and to start talking again and letting people know what's going on. Elizabeth Taylor is gone. HIV is not. Martin Delaney is gone. HIV is not. HIV is still here. And we are still here, and we are the proof of that. And it's because of that we draw our strength from one another. You don't see people running around with red ribbons anymore. You don't hear people chattering about HIV anymore. Occasionally you'll see a commercial on TV, we are greater than AIDS. Very great, poignant, works, but that's it. It's up to us to start making noise again. We need to do this through a lot of avenues. One of them is prevention, and that's primarily what I do at the health department. I go out and I speak to different groups, juvie halls, prisons, churches, wherever they let me talk, I speak. Today's DVD that we're about to show you is one of the tools that I use. Last year, we showed the DVD Bloodlines, and it was a great flick, and it's gotten a lot of mileage. I think most of you in this room have seen it. This year, we're going to see a new DVD called In Their Own Words. Now, it's new to me, but it's actually been out there for quite some time. And I think its story is rather poignant because it still tells about our struggle. Number one, people are still dying with this disease. We may be doing well right now. We may be taking that once-a-day pill. We may be doing things like going to work and doing the things that we're supposed to do and going on living our lives. But the fact of the matter is, people are still dying. And people need to know that. And with that being said, Jesse, please.
Okay. Can you bring me the mic, sir?
Still very poignant. I dragged it out of the archives to make a point. This is still happening. A lot of people might have mixed feelings about it, but I still think it works. Does anybody have any questions? Right.
It showed that some of the people passed away. The women, are they still alive?
To my knowledge, yes, they're still alive. Anyone else? I think it's important that we understand where we've been and where we are now. We have a history, and it's pretty deep. When I was diagnosed back in 28 years ago, there was a saying, we were diagnosed at lunch and dead by dinner. Friends of mine took 22 pills a day. When they jumped up and down, they sounded like a rattle. They suffered. They died. But they didn't die in vain. They taught us life lessons learned, so that we can go on. It's important that we empower ourselves to understand films like this, as old as they are, that they're still effective and this could still happen. It's important to let people know that because we are living with HIV, we are an empowered people. We are people of one voice, and that we will beat this thing. Thank you.
Butch, can you come back up? Where's Butch? what I was telling you about how the travel things were going to mess up. So our speaker hasn't arrived yet, so we're still going to need to, and by all means, hey, James, can you ask Butch and Rachel to let me know when our speaker gets here? And also tell Butch to come here. Yes, go ahead. Please stand up. Please stand up so people can hear you.
Just for the requirement, is there a way we can get a copy of that film, of that video?
If you contact me, I'll be happy to try for you. I can give you the information.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that, you know, the way that you announced that and the reaction that this film's 20 years, almost 20 years old, and that you applauded. I was sitting there kind of making notes in my head. What an amazing blessing we have now to have medical technology that keeps that stuff from happening. But there's two things. It is pretty amazing. So the treatment adherence message is embedded in there. I'm HIV positive since 1997, probably before that, because when I was diagnosed I was very, very sick. Had multiple viral pneumonia and 9 pneumothoraces, so you medical people know what that means. I was gone without the E, G-O-N, according to my pulmonologist. But since I've been on treatment, I've been undetectable. I haven't had night sweats since. I can't remember the last time I've been that sick. Think about this. If you now, in 2012, if you have night sweats, I don't think, oh my gosh, I'm having an HIV attack. I think there's something else viral going on in my body. You know what I mean? So that's pretty cool, right? It's actually things like, I might have the flu. Hooray! I might actually have the flu. So Butch is going to come in here in a minute. Butch. Okay, and we. I promised in the lecture. By the way, did everybody get the independent sheet that has the specific ActivateU agenda on it? It's a sheet by itself. Okay, did everybody get that? Okay, so you can kind of check. You can tell already that we're jumping around, and you can kind of check off the stuff that we've done already. But right now, in the blurb in the FHAAN program, I want to pay off something. We kind of promised a history of HIV, with this caveat that goes over the whole conference. Those 170 people that raised their hand and said this is the first ActivateU you've been to. Everybody else who's been to one before, help that person along. If you saw somebody raise their hand next to you, then you know this is their first time. And some of this stuff you've heard before, but repetition's good, right? So we wanted to Butch and I wanted to give you a little bit of perspective on how important HIV/AIDS advocacy is and what it's done. I'm going to, since Butch is still making his way up to the stage, I'm going to start with Florida, and then he's going to tell you from an even cooler, even broader perspective what it's done since the beginning. In Florida specifically, and I know we have lots of states represented here, which is really cool. In Florida Medicaid, there's an exemption for HIV drugs specifically, meaning Medicaid providers have access to all antiretrovirals in the HIV antiretroviral class. That's the only drug class that's exempt from the PDL now. There's kind of a built-in lesson to this. Can anybody tell me what other class of drugs used to be exempt in Florida Medicaid?
Mental health?
Mental health drugs. Joey Wayne is right. And that went away because the same year that we saved the HIV exemption in Medicaid, Governor Bush, Jeb Bush at the time, was going after, and it wasn't just Jeb Bush, it was the whole legislature too, was going after the exemption in HIV and mental health. And we partnered with mental health. Mental health went down, but we're still here. So if you're an optimist, you say, good for us. If you're the glass is half empty type person, like I am sometimes, we're next. We're next. And we've been next for a lot of years. We've done some amazing things in maintaining that, but HIV advocacy moving forward is going to be hugely important. I was going to put the national debt clock up for the rest of this, just to drive home a point. We're moving into environment, not moving in. We're here. We're moving into an environment, and we're here in an environment where state legislators and policymakers are looking to save money any way they can, no matter how you feel about the national debt picture or state deficits. That's a reality that we have to face, and I'll go into a little bit about how we can actually use that to our advantage, and already have, and some pretty good news. So Project AIDS Care is a home and community-based service in Florida Medicaid. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do it. A small group of very smart people, some of whom are in this room, convinced Florida Medicaid to apply for that waiver, and Project AIDS Care, or PAC, still exists today. That's important. That's really important, because a lot of people are, when they're first diagnosed and their care team tells them they need treatment, a lot of times the first way they access care is through PAC pending or medically needy pending, and that program is key to a lot of people getting on treatment as soon as they need it. No stranger to having lots of vials of blood drawn in this room, is there? When you go in for a genotype and a phenotype, you're getting a test that costs hundreds of dollars, and also viral load testing. When the phenotypic assay came out, it cost like between $800 and almost $1,200, and Medicaid didn't want to pay for it. Phenotypic assays, phenotypes, are the tests that tell your doctor which of all of the HIV drugs work best for the type of virus that you're living with, so not to throw lingo out. So the conversations with Florida Medicaid that year started with, well, it's an expensive test. Well, prostate-specific antigen is an expensive test, and you pay for about 40,000 of those per year. And that's literally where the conversation started. Wind the clock forward, lots of strategizing, lots of teamwork. And to this day, language in the Florida budget bill every single year is Florida Medicaid shall pay for the HIV diagnostics testing. That's in the only piece of legislation every single year that Florida legislators are constitutionally required to pass. So if you want something to stick, you get it in the budget bill. And over the last 10 years, I'd say, two programs like AIDS Insurance Continuation Program, which we'll be hearing back about shortly from Rick Vitale, and ADAP, we've added millions of dollars to the state contribution for Florida ADAP. That's above and beyond what comes from the federal government. So with that, I want to bring Butch up and have him tell you some of the really cool things that literally have just changed, revolutionized HIV treatment, not just for people living with HIV, but all diseases.
That's it.
Okay, first of all, before I do that, I just wanted to recognize something. Today is National HIV Women and Girls Awareness Day. So would all the women just stand? Let's recognize you.
Here, here.
Now, I had the opportunity yesterday to speak to the Positive Women's Network Summit that they held here at the hotel. Many of you attended that two-day conference. And I had an opportunity to address them at lunch yesterday, and one of the things I told them growing up was my father always said, if there's a tough job, you're a man, get a man to do it. My mother always says, no, get a woman to do it. Not only will she do it right, she'll do it right the first time. And so I salute all of you women who get it right the first time. And the role that you have played in the HIV advocacy movement, we wouldn't be where we are today without you. And I also want to recognize our sisters in other countries. I've had the really unique opportunity of working in Africa, and if it wasn't for the women in Africa, nothing would be going on there. Nothing at all. These women are incredible. They're strong, they're determined, they're not going to be shut down, they're going to fight for everybody, not just themselves. But the strength that they have shown me the times I've been in Africa has been amazing. And it's amazing that so many women come to this conference. You know, I've been around for 24 years, and in the early days, almost all of our advocates were men. Men were the ones thought to be impacted the most. Women were the sort of the quiet advocates if they were advocating at all. But not anymore, girls. You found your voice. You're out there screaming, so thank you. You got it right over there. Can some of us men come to some of your summits so we can learn how to do that? Okay. Yeah, the guy that sets everything up came in the room yesterday, and I'm the only man there. And he says, because he knows I'm a big Auburn fan, he says, this looks like, he says, do you sort of feel like an Auburn fan in an Alabama room? And I said, what, am I the only bald-headed woman in here? Just cracked up. So, but anyway, we do want to recognize this special day for women and girls, and thank you. And it's also International Women's HIV Awareness Day, and I've gotten several emails from my African counterparts. I'm very involved in the microbicide trial study and the vaccine trial, so I work with some amazing women, and so I salute you and keep up the good work. And you know yourself, there's a lot of work still to be done and a lot more women to recruit. Women tend to, sit back and be the caregiver so often and see that as their number one role. But there's also a role very important, equally important for your health, because the logic that you're there to take care of somebody else comes first and you're going to come second. If you put yourself first, you're going to be there longer for that person. So you've got to think of it in those terms. It's okay to love yourself, and I encourage everybody to do that. Okay, getting back to our program here. Some of the things that advocacy's done on the federal and national level, back in the early 80s, there weren't any drugs. And the FDA had this history for a drug to be tested and retested. Sometimes it would take 25 years for a drug to come to market. It was always in trials. They were not available except to a handful of people. Well, this needed to change when we were dealing with HIV and AIDS in the 80s, when, after you got converted from that HIV status to that AIDS status, and you knew the word on the street and the word in reality was 2 years to live. And people didn't have 25 years to wait. And so the community at that time became activated. We had activists in the streets. How many had heard of ACT UP before? Yes. ACT UP needs to be revitalized like it never has before. We have got to become more vocal. And I know AHF's here and signing a lot of you up to go to Washington, but it's going to take going back to the streets. And so we've got to do that, but there's also a big role for the advocates. At one time, I was the activist. I was the guy in the street. And we all have our own niche to play, and I found out I was more effective sitting in a room with legislators and meeting people on your local city councils. We can't forget the local politicians as well as the national and the state. Too many cities, including the one you're in, get nothing from the city government. We don't get anything, and we need to. We deserve it. And so advocacy starts at home, and it grows. And some people are going to be better on the federal scene than the state scene or the local scene. You just have to find your own niche. And one of the things we do here is try to give you your voice. A lot of people will send us emails afterwards thanking us that we gave them their voice. Well, actually, I like to think that we didn't really give it to them. It was there all along. We just sort of fine-tuned it. And they took it from there. But because people demonstrated, they shut down the FDA, literally. Barricaded the doors, they were outside, they wouldn't let employees in, there was picket lines, people couldn't go to work. And all of a sudden the government had never had this happen before. They had never seen this type of movement, this type of attitude. They were scared. They knew that the time had come that they had to address the issue. And here was Larry, everybody know Larry Kramer?
Yeah.
Here was Larry Kramer and his guys out there, the bad guys, you know, and they didn't want to cross their picket lines. They didn't want to talk to Larry Kramer, but they knew they had to talk to somebody. So Martin Delaney, who's near and dear to this conference, having been part of it for so many years from its inception before his untimely death a couple of years ago, he and Larry, unbeknownst to a lot of people, had sort of this agreement. You make the noise, you get people stirred up, you get them scared, and then have them talk to me. Martin Delaney had been a 5th grade school teacher. He knew how to talk to people in their language. He was highly intelligent, smarter than any physician I've ever met. He also, you know, could explain that I made. Hey, this hotel had me up at 1 and 2 o'clock this morning because some of you were misbehaving. I'm not going to call anybody out. But, so I haven't had a whole lot of sleep. So I'm going to make a few mistakes. Bear with me. But anyway, so in walked Martin Delaney, and he could sit across the table from the scientists, the researchers, the drug manufacturers, and he could talk their language and get things accomplished. So it was a fantastic partnership. And those days have got to return. We've got to make some noise, because right now we've got an elected officials all across the country, particularly in state governments. They don't want to hear what you have to say. They don't want to talk to you. But they got to. And they're not going to unless you make them. So we got to be vocal. We got to get out there. So we have been so successful in the early days of this epidemic. Not only did it benefit people with HIV and AIDS, but when we were able to speed up that process of bringing drugs to market in a timely fashion, it helped people with cancer, it helped people with diabetes, it helped everybody with any medical condition. The rules changed. And that we can be proud of. And we need to, every day, we have so much out there that we need to be advocating for. You know, we hear a lot about the ADAP crisis, and Joey's going to talk about that later, and that is a #1 concern and priority. There is no reason in this country, the richest nation in the world, that anybody should be on a damn waiting list. It's unacceptable, and we're not going to take it. And I want every one of you to say something about that. Write your congressman, visit him, call him, send him an email. You've got a question like, oh, okay, thank you. I got a cheerleader out there. So, and I know Kathy Hires is here, and she will go after you to help her and raise her voice about housing needs, because housing is a health issue. And we need more acceptable housing, more affordable housing, and all of this has consequences that we cannot risk if we don't get what we need. So no is not an acceptable answer when you're talking to an elected official. You know what you need better than anybody, and you are your strongest advocate. As somebody that works in the field, I can go and I can quote facts and figures, and they'll be polite and write them down. But they need to hear from people living with HIV and AIDS. You have the strength. You have the power, much more so than me. I'll do my part, I promise you. I've been doing that 24 years, and it's time for every one of you to do your part.
Okay, in addition...
Can you stand up, please?
Okay. In addition, I'm Beverly from Atlanta, GA, and I'm here to represent people that have housing problems. As far as finding them housing, that's all good. But what about us people who have homes, who have had to go on disability and are in jeopardy of losing their homes?
You heard the lady. We need to advocate for people who not only at this time may not have housing, but they have housing, but they stand to lose it. And there's a lot that has to be changed there. Robert Stuttle later is going to talk about the criminalization issue. That's another huge issue we're facing in this community, that we have to get behind that movement and get these outdated laws changed. And then we're going to have a presentation on affordable health care, and that's so critical. Right now we don't know what's going to happen. We have an election coming up in November that can totally change everything we've been working for. So There's a lot of uncertainties there, so I ask you to, pay attention to that and advocate for what we need. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jesse.
Thanks, Butch. We were actually scheduled within all the stuff that we're working around to have like a little mini break, but don't leave because the break consists of Miss Lupina doing some limber up exercises. So we're gonna right? You're not gonna have anybody. Come on up. We're not gonna have anybody leave or go smoke. We're gonna what? Okay, so the section, the kind of pump you up, everybody kind of develop a shared philosophy of HIV/AIDS advocacy moving forward. I probably call it, what kind of advocate will you be? That's not suggesting that you aren't already are an advocate or that you need some kind of, sorry, I'm so winded. I just feel so invigorated. Or that you need some kind of rebirth or something. Or maybe you're new to this area of advocacy. This section, this day was recommended to you by someone that you know back in your home state, and you say, what's this all about? So we're going to kind of go over Advocacy 101, and a lot of it's philosophical, so bear with me. So I suggest, and people who've seen me since 2003 know that these are the three things I really stress with being an advocate. And I think they're really important. That's why I hammer them so much. One, strive for that priceless position in the minds of people you're trying to influence of being a credible source of information. Somebody that people can rely on, decision makers, policy makers, lawmakers, state program managers, know that they can come to you for credible information for their decision making. We'll get into a little bit more about where you find sources of that information and how you can be a conduit for experts on data to the people that need it to decide. So own that position yourself as a credible source of information for decision makers. There was more gain on this, but it's not going to happen. Develop one-to-one relationships with the people that represent you in government. And I grin so hard about this because it's our right as Americans. Our system of government is a constitutional republic. We elect people to go to Washington, go to Tallahassee, go to, Montpelier, Vermont, right? And represent us in government. Why? So we can enjoy freedom and liberty and get on with our lives. It's their jobs, if they run for elected office, to go to Washington, D.C., to go to Tallahassee, to go to Montpelier, to represent us in the lawmaking process, to carry the will of the people to the state houses and the councils of government. So that's enough of Schoolhouse Rock. Remember that? You old timers? I got a great story that I was sworn not to tell anybody. I might get a couple of Heinekens in me. I might tell you this story. Okay, number 3 is strive for a degree of professionalism and sophistication that sets you apart from the rest of the crowd. Why do you suppose that I stress that? Because first of all, it's easy to do. Because there's a lot of jackasses out there who are doing it wrong, whom you don't necessarily want to emulate. So when you project an image of professionalism, you can see people's bodies relax. When you approach them properly, they welcome that. They're just, you can see their bodies at ease. Okay. So this slide I just kind of put up here to stress that we're not just Ryan White program advocates. We're not just Medicaid advocates. We're advocating for a whole continuum of payers for HIV/AIDS care and treatment, all the way up from people who have their private health insurance, people on pharmaceutical company patient assistance programs, AIDS insurance continuation program, ADAP, PAC pending, Medicaid, Florida, Medicaid, or just Medicaid, sorry, Medicare with or without Part D, and people who have no options for insurance or for one reason or the other, they get their care through uncompensated care. So along the whole lines of positioning yourself as a credible source of information with lawmakers, you have to know who they are, right? So how do you find them? Who brought their laptops with them or have like 3G or 4G on their phone? Can you do me a favor, and I'll circle back with y'all, and I'll ask for you to re-raise your hands. Go to the URL www.votesmart.org. Votesmart.org, and I'll tell you why in a minute. The cool thing about this website, it's free. You don't have to register, you don't have to sign up. You have to know your zip code and the +4 afterwards. A lot of you who've been through ActivateU before know why I kind of harp on this. The other thing that's really cool about it, not only it shows you contact information, it also shows you the family structure of your member, whether they're married, how many kids they have. A lot of times it'll have all their other civic organizations of which they're a member. I used to be a member of Rotary in Central Florida. So if I look on my member's website and I see that they're a Rotarian too, I've got that in common with them, right? Or if they're on a membership board of the YMCA. You can look for little things that you might use as icebreakers to get through. Say, you know, hello, fellow Toastmaster from Orlando, Florida, and just kind of break the ice with that. It also lets you track their voting record. There's links on votesmart.org, so if you're following a particular bill or a particular issue, you can see how your member voted. Not just not just federal Congress, not just House and Senate in Washington, D.C., but also your home state. So it's pretty cool. So for those of you who went to votesmart.org, who's got the site up in a way that they can, okay. So who's got a QWERTY keyboard? Shall we win?
I'm booting up.
Okay. Oh, okay. Is it anybody? Well, go ahead and go to the box where it says look up your members and put your zip code in there and pull it up. How many people have used, if you've been through ActivateU before, have you gone to votesmart.org and used that? A couple of hands. I'd like to see way more hands go up, because this is a company and little nonprofit organization up in Montana, believe it or not, that does this all for no money, and it's very, very thorough. Some of the services that you pay $15,000 a year for are actually comparable to this, and it's free. So I might come back to the VoteSmart thing because I want to point out one thing about it in a little second. Okay, and just so we're keeping this on track, let me know the minute our guest speaker gets here. Because I'm going to start doing hand puppets in front of the projector. Okay. Okay, there's strength in numbers. How many people in the audience are members of their local consortium, Rhine-White Consortium, and or planning council, or both? Raise your hand. Okay. Raise them high. I'm trying to do a full estimate. Are the folks from Massachusetts and Washington, D.C. and Louisiana paying attention to that? That is amazing. That's about 50% of the hands went up. 50% participation in any effort like that, that's great. So definitely give yourself a hand. You know why that's so important? You guys have regular meetings. And I get really excited when I talk about this. You can capitalize on one of the greatest aspects of training and education and community organizing and partnership. You have regular meetings. It's called the captive audience principle. You have a group of people in a room, Vicki Lynn likes this too, that you know who's going to be in the room. You know more about them probably than most people. You're on the same bodies, the committees or the full planning bodies. And you can use that for messaging them on what's going on in your state. Now, for the people that are on planning councils and consortium, how many people have a standing member of the committee, or a committee or the full body, that is sort of like the advocacy ambassador, or is the advocacy chair? Anybody? Okay, that's when, aha. I know Orlando people do, because we started that. That's one thing I'd love for you to go back to your consortium and planning council with that concept. I know Joey Wynn tells everybody in Fort Lauderdale everything. So that's one thing that I've recommended through my career, and if that idea really took off with 50% participation in consortia and planning council, that's a huge that's just a huge accomplishment, and it's also something that you can't buy. You can't go to a database marketing company and say, can I purchase a list from you that gives me access to everybody in the state of Florida that does community planning around HIV and AIDS? Can you give me that? No, they can't. So when you go back home at the next consortium meeting or the next planning council meeting, raise your hand, stand up. I move that we establish an advocacy chair or an advocacy ambassador or whatever you want to call it. And you can discuss it. You think that's a good idea? Yeah. Yes? Okay. Because we're going to get into a little bit of where you get the data to then take to your community, your communities. I'm going to tell you. And it's pretty cool, I think. Okay, so how many people in their states? In Florida, we have an advocacy group called Florida HIV/AIDS Advocacy Network. One of the presenters, Mr. Joey Wynn, is the co-chairman of the group. I'm a co-chairman with him. Rick Vitale is the co-chair of the advocacy committee. How many have apart from consortium, apart from planning council, have an advocacy group in your state? Okay. All right. Now, that's another thing that we're going to talk about when we do the state breakouts, because we're going to do kind of a mini needs assessment among the people from the other states. And by the way, when we come back from the break, I know this is one of the big no-nos that facilitators should never do, is make people leave their seats and now that they're all comfortable and then go to another section or another table. It makes you uncomfortable just talking about it, right? Okay. But we're going to do that because it's going to be important that we sit with people from every other state. I go through the list right now, but it's so long it would take me 5 minutes. I know to some extent, I know people are sitting by states already, but I'm always amazed at things like this, how many people will come from Mississippi, for example, that don't know people in their state that work on some of the same issues. To a certain extent, it's getting a lot better, but that's something I really want us to work on when we have our state breakouts. Okay, so with all that talk of saying, get with people, there's strength in numbers, get with people that are working on the same thing. Does everybody agree on everything all the time? No, of course not. And you shouldn't. Because getting back to that principle of us living as free individuals that have liberty in a constitutional republic, you've got your own voice. So if you're part of a group, consortium, planning council, advocacy group, you're already getting information to help you form opinions. If your opinion differs from the rest of the group, you don't have to form a solid consensus and everybody agree to express your views to your legislators. You can do that on your own, and you should be. Develop a one-to-one relationship with the people that represent you in government. It's one of those things that some people would say, I wish Jesse wouldn't say that anymore. Okay, or maybe not. So applying those principles, I want to give you one quick kind of case history of a very recent, as a matter of fact, its ink isn't even dry on it, advocacy success that we had in Florida. Legislative session in Florida happened early this year because of redistricting. Everybody knows what that is, right? They do the census in D.C. About a year and a half later, all the data comes out, and they redraw all the voting districts. In Florida, it's for the state house and the state senate. So that means that the legislature meets early. Ordinarily, session wouldn't have even started yet. But they started early to get all the redistricting stuff done because, of course, there are lawsuits after the districts are gone, right? So we had to kind of think on our feet. And what happened is in the budgetary process, on the Senate side of the budgetary process, the Senate recommended an increase of $5 million for the state ADAP program. That's AIDS Drug Assistance Program. Late in the process was actually what is called a bump issue, which means if the mere budget conferees can't decide on things, it gets bumped up to the budget leaders. The House countered with an offer of $2.5 million. Now you might say that's kind of cheesy. It was only half. Listen, in an environment where everything else is getting cut, Medicaid hospital reimbursement rates got cut. Just cut after cut. In the budget that they're voting on, like discussing literally right now, I keep getting updates on my phone, that $2.5 million increase for ADAP is in the bill, accompanied by language that the money is to go to reduce the waiting list. So pretty cool, right? And how do we do that? It's always, first of all, advocacy is always teamwork. No one entity or group can claim the credit for it. And you should be generous sharing the credit for stuff like that to emphasize the importance of teamwork like that. Right? Right? Okay. Every once in a while I say something that makes sense, right? So by all means, go, yes! Make those louder and more frequent. It's my job to say things that sound smart. We'll see if that happens. So the message, the theme of the message was ending the waiting list is a fiscally sound decision from Florida, for Florida.
Yes.
Okay. I got a yes from this. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anybody that's upset or bothered by that? Okay. Be honest. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Okay. That makes me feel good. Here's why. I've had fiscally responsible messaging that I've kind of been part of be criticized. That's heartless. You should only talk about that these drugs are life-saving drugs, that if you keep these drugs from people, they're going to die.
The government understands money only.
Okay. What did you say? Say that again.
The government understands money only. That's all we understand is money.
Well, again, flash to the national debt clock. This message hit home with these people because the House healthcare budget and the Senate healthcare budget were $1 billion apart. $1 billion. That's $1,000 million. 1,000 million of these, right? So it makes sense, and that was just good validation. But let me tell you, the life-saving drug message never goes away. The working on a comprehension level with members, with their staff, with committee staff, with the governor's office and his healthcare staff, on getting them to understand that HIV/AIDS today doesn't have to be like that film that we saw this morning. That's a long-term goal. That's something that you're working on all the time. A stratagem that moves an agenda like that, how do we get the House to kick in $2.5 million for HIV/AIDS drugs? It's something like that. It's simple. It can be said, if you only have an elevator ride worth of time to speak to a member about that, you can communicate that general message to them. And those are the kinds of messages I'm suggesting that move items like that. Okay. And I'll update you when the budget passes. Okay, so this is more of what I just talked about. Burying the lead, don't do it. If you're, the thing that amazes me about Ryan White programs, in particular Ryan White, is they save money. They save money, they prevent disability. In most cases, they allow people to continue working, to keep people working at a job where they can accept promotions and not become income disqualified for the program. It's amazing. And George H. Walker W. Bush signed the CARE Act in 1990. This is 2012. We have 21 years of data to look back and say, look at what these programs do. So in an environment where budget deficits are everything, not debt, deficits, when your state houses sit down to do the budget, a lot of states have constitutional balanced budget amendments. They have to balance the budget. So you can keep HIV/AIDS off the chopping block by not burying the lead. Keep the fiscal responsibility message up front. Don't forget the value of medicine. I put this on before I'd even seen the film today. Is there any more of a testimony to the value of medicines that we have today? That was made at a time, wasn't that before protease inhibitors came out?
Yes.
Okay, protease inhibitors, my viral load when I was in the hospital in 1997 was in the millions. At the time, you couldn't measure above, like, it's over 1 million. Right.
Yeah.
And you know what else happened? Who can tell me what else came out or happened in 1997? Virus. I took, my viral load went from in the millions to under 10,000, which was a big milestone in treatment for somebody that sick, in 4 weeks. That's one bottle of pills. So, and I went from ICU on a jet ventilator on a bed that rotates to CCU in 4 weeks. So, and then I was out of the hospital a few weeks after that. So the value of medicines is huge in terms of, do you want to pay for a 28-day stay on a critical care unit floor in a hospital for $250,000, or do you want to pay for antiretroviral treatment for 2 people for a year? Which do you want to pay for? It's like the pay me now or pay me later thing, right? Okay. So thinking ahead, are you getting excited about working together as states? Yeah, that's good. Okay, so 3 things to be thinking about. We've got some programming to go on, but I like to give people, I'm a big believer in the subconscious mind and how your brain works on back burner stuff. So think about what you've done as a state that you're particularly proud of. If you don't have any like flagship successes and you're just getting started, you personally or your state as organizers, that's cool too. That's even better. Because I'm looking around this room, there are people I've known in this room for like 11 or 12 years. There's a lot of wisdom in this room that can help you. So, and then what do you believe is your greatest challenge facing your state, right? And what are your strengths and needs? I was just going to put needs up there, but do a little bit of an inventory of what you think your human resources strengths are and other kind of resources, and then what are your needs for facing that challenge. So that's just kind of food for thought for later. Okay, this is the fun part. Who's ever heard, I'm backing up so I can maximize my peripheral vision, and I'm bringing this home for a landing, in case anyone's getting tired. Who's ever heard of SOPA and PIPA? Please raise your hand. Okay. SOPA and PIPA? All right. Those of you who've never heard of it, don't feel bad. Because there's several dozen members of Congress that wish they had never heard of it either. Or introduced the bill, or co-sponsored it, attached their name in any way. Here's why. It's okay. For those of you who don't know, SOPA and PIPA are intellectual property protection bills. So it would have given U.S. law enforcement officials more authority to literally shut down websites that say one of your registered users who registered for free posted their favorite scene and song from the Disney movie Bedknobs and Broomsticks. And therefore, we're going to shut you down. Is that a little bit silly? It's not the whole movie. It's not click here to download this whole movie and not have to pay $13 on Amazon to buy the DVD. But you can see the ramifications for that, right? SOPA was the House version of it. It was introduced by Lamar Smith in Texas. And this just cracks me up. I'm sorry. The Senate version is called PIPA. But the real acronym for the bill is Protect IP Act. And Protect IP Act stands for Preventing Real Threats to Economic Creativity and Theft of Intellectual Property. It has an acronym for the acronym. Patrick Leahy is the second longest serving member of Congress. He's been in Congress for 36 years. It looks like he spent more time on the acronyms than he did on the bill, but okay, so let me tell you what happened. I actually didn't do a slide on what happened because I'm going to show you a video of the ramifications of what happened. But in a nutshell, people melted phone lines in Washington, D.C. Websites like Google, Wired, all these different search engines blacked out their website. So how many people go to like yahoo.com or Google about 4 times a day, right? So when you went to Google that day, you saw this big blackout like censorship bar, and it said, guess why we blacked out the site today? Because Congress has proposed this bill, blah, 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 that would affect how you use our site. So here's what you do to feed back. Ready? Okay. Where's Rick Vitale? This is the part where I go, you're going to love the example I use for this.
Oh, Lordy.
I'm doing seriously, you love it. So hang on a second. I got to whisk us into the 21st century so I can show you this.
It's not another 90s clip, is it? Tale of Two YouTubes. It's his favorite video.
After today, we can be
Wait.
After today, we can be sure that Congress at least understands the power of the internet. Google, Wikipedia, Boing Boing, Flickr, WordPress, Reddit, Wired.
What? Sorry.
It's buffering.
Sorry.
I think they're shutting you down.
I feel the spirit of Rachel.
Craigslist, and many, many, many more either blocked their websites entirely today or used their websites to make a big, can't-miss-it visual statement of their discontent with this legislation. The Progressive Change Campaign Committee says via Craigslist visitors alone, more than 30,000 people today called Congress through the PCCC website that linked them with a way to do that. We cover all kinds of protests on this show, all kinds of nonviolent direct action, all kinds of ways that people try to get Congress to do something if they are not a member of Congress. But I have never seen Congress move so far, so fast on just one day of protest as the way they did today. In the last 24 hours, Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, who'd been a sponsor of the bill, now...
How appropriate, a Florida pause.
I know.
Says he no longer supports it. Senator John Cornyn of Texas, who has also supported the bill, now says he wants Congress to...
It's kind of funny.
All these teasers.
To slow down on this. The aforementioned Roy Blunt, with the pirated picture for his Twitter background, he's gone from being a sponsor of the bill to saying he will vote against it. Republican Senator Scott Brown of Massachusetts has come out overtly against it. Senator Jim DeMint, the Tea Party silverback from South Carolina, today announced that he too opposes the bill. Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey sponsored this. Today he said he is open to changes in it. Senator Ben Cardin of Maryland sponsored the bill until today, when he changed his mind. Congressman Tim Holden of Pennsylvania, now rejecting legislation he himself signed on to co-sponsor. Also in the House, Congressman Ben Quayle and Congressman Lee Terry took back their previous support of the bill. So did Dennis Ross, who was a sponsor of the House version before he decided that he now rejects it. How's that for an about-face? All of these members of Congress surrendering today.
How about that, right? Okay.
Thank you. I got my Rachel fix.
Yeah. Okay.
I've never seen him before.
Two things about that. During this video, Rachel says Roy mentions Roy Blunt in the pirated picture. Does anybody know what that was about? Okay, so here he is sponsoring a bill that would give federal law enforcement officials more power to police stealing copyrighted property. His Twitter account had a background photograph of some people on horseback roaming through the hillside. It was a copyrighted photograph by a professional photographer. Blunt had it on his Twitter background. Okay, that's observable. The other thing is, Menendez? Did anybody zero in on that? So everybody else is dropping it like it's on fire, but Menendez says, I'm open to ideas to change. That's somebody who you really have to work on a lot, because apparently they're like, I'm going to do it anyway, I'm just going to change it. Okay, so bringing it in for landing, what kind of advocate do you want to be? And I'm going to show you another video and just kind of have this be an organic into it. But you can do things that get you labeled that guy or that gal, and member staff say, don't ever let that person in the office again. Or you can partner with your fellow consortium members, your fellow planning council members, your members of your state-based advocacy groups and Washington-based advocacy groups, and own that position of a credible source of information, present a degree of professionalism that makes people wonder whether you're a paid lobbyist or not. And I forgot the second one because I'm already laughing at the video I'm going to show you. So what kind of advocate do you want to be? Do you want to be somebody that participates in a huge advocacy success like that? Or do you want to do this? All right, quickly, has anybody seen one of these videos from Anonymous? Okay. This might take longer than it's worth, but...
You need to clean out your recycle bin.
Is that what it is? This is how long. You're going to have to really listen because the volume's low and you can't really...
Great intro.
Hello, Sony. We are Anonymous. It has come to the attention of the Anonymous activist community that you have chosen to stand by the Stop Online Piracy Act. This act will halt online businesses and restrict access to many sites for many users. Supporting SOPA is like trying to throw an entire company front off a bridge. Your support to the act is a signed death warrant to Sony Company and Associates. Therefore, yet again, we have decided to destroy your network. We will dismantle your phantom from the internet. Prepare to be extinguished. Justice will be swift, and it will be for the people, whether some like it or not. Sony, you have been warned. To those doubting our powers, we've infiltrated the servers of Bank of America, the United States Department of Defense, the United Nations, and Lockheed Martin in one day. For their approval to SOPA, we have also declared that our fury be brought upon the following persons: Justin Bieber, Lady Gaga, Kim Kardashian, and Taylor Swift. Operation Blackout, engaged. Operation Mayhem, engaged. Operation World's Xmas, engaged. We are Anonymous. We are Legion. Operation Mayhem, engaged. Operation World's Xmas, engaged. We are Anonymous. We are Legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Supporters of SOPA, you should have expected us.
Okay. All right. Great. Very great. So that's how not to do it. For you Bible readers out there, did you pick up on when he said, we are Legion?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody knows what that means, right? Okay. It's in the Gospels, if you care to read it. It's a conversation that Christ had with a person who said, "I am Legion." So, pretty creepy. But, you know, Justin Bieber and Lady Gaga better watch their butts, man. I think that's hilarious. Okay, is our speaker here yet? All right.
Did somebody go get him from the airport? He might have landed.
I know.
Sitting there.
Or cell phone died or something like that. The only reason, that video has gotten over 650,000 hits. So, you know, it's a pretty good contrast to the reaction that Rachel Maddow described. So the only reason I say that is, how does that relate to HIV/AIDS advocacy? Will we ever have an issue that motivates that many people that quickly? I don't know. But among ourselves, if you get an email from Michael Ruppel or somebody like me that says, hey, this is on the line, there's $2.5 million worth of increased ADAP funds on the line, call your two members of the Florida legislature right now. Please do it. I'm telling you, I don't want to make it sound bleak. I don't want to sound like I'm telling you right now, people. They're coming for us next. We are next. We are next. Anybody who hasn't had their budget lines gone through with a fine-tooth comb is in the queue to have it done next. Okay, that's it. And what we'll do now is, where's Butch? Because I don't know. We have a little break planned. Hey, let's talk about this. So we had a big breakfast this morning, right? Brunch, right? And tonight there's even more food at dinner. And in between, we don't have like a sit-down big lunch because, you know, that would be creating insulin resistance in everybody in the room. So we're going to have like a little kind of power snack. And I'm going to let you kind of program your own break. Do you want to have our snack? It's like lemonade and power bars, stuff like that. And then have another little exercise break before we get started again? You like that idea? Okay. So let's break now.
I'm confused. I've been hearing about SOPA and PIPA and all this other stuff. And I honestly thought that PIPA was an English bridesmaid. But I think we can move on. Boom. Jess, are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Before we get started, I want to thank Robert Sandrock and the Health Councils of South Florida. Number one, Robert helped put this presentation together. And the Health Councils of South Florida are the ones who disseminate the monies for AICP. AICP stands for AIDS Insurance Continuation Program. Great program. It's a no-brainer, like Jesse said. It makes a lot of dollars and cents. And when it hits the state legislators, believe me, they love it too, because it saves the state of Florida a lot of money. Jesse, do I need a clicker or something?
I don't know why the projector turned on. I'm not taking responsibility for that.
And I guess I need to stretch. It's hot. And you want to wait 5 minutes and have somebody else? AICP, AIDS Insurance Continue. I didn't do that.
No, he's hit the black.
No. Does it right and left? Oh, I'm pointing to the screen. It's down there, right?
Down here. It's just saying that slide. Yeah. No, it's not going to project.
It's out. AICP stands for the AIDS Insurance Continuation Program.
He's going to wing it.
Thank you. Basically what it is a program under the Ryan White federal dollars, and it is funded through federal dollars and also through the state of Florida. Just recently, we had a wait list of almost 378 people, and as of December this past month, the wait list is now gone. Okay, but before we get into all these wonderful things about AICP, I want to talk about a little bit what Jesse said earlier, to have an understanding of what you talk about when you speak to your legislators. And basically what I was going to do today by using AICP was just so that you have an idea, so that you understand what programs are. and how to approach what programs, because knowledge is power, and if you have that knowledge of what the programs are all about, then you have the power and able to capture their attentions because you have the knowledge. Round circle right there. AICP was developed back in 1981, I believe, and it was originally a demonstration act in South Florida. It was later successful and became the AIDS Insurance Continuation Program as we know it today. And basically what it does is allows the local ASOs, because you can only tap into this program through your local AIDS service organizations and or those who make it available to you in your area.
Wait a second.
Back up. It's okay, we really don't need it. I'm going to...
Well, just keep talking. He'll catch up.
And with that, it allows the individual who ends up in a COBRA situation and or a possibly low-income situation who may lose their insurance for this program to come in and rescue that for them. In other words, they're actually buying the insurance for them, which is great, because what happens with that? A number of things. First of all, it gives you full coverage. Oh, here it is. Okay, stop.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, which button do I push so we don't screw it up? Okay. We'll start all over again. The AIDS Insurance Continuation Program, AICP, was funded by both the state of Florida and the federal Ryan White program at 41% and 59% respectively. AICP utilizes an innovative public-private partnership to cost-effectively implement successful and nationally recognized statewide health insurance programs. What does it offer you? It offers you, number one, continuity of medical care and case management. It offers you another thing, such as access to medical facilities that are not covered by publicly funded programs. And it accesses life-sustaining medications under private health insurance. AIC purchases private sector healthcare goods and services at a reduced public sector cost for low-income Floridians living with HIV and AIDS. Basically, here are the programs of monies that were received in 2008, 2009, and 2010. These were the program outlays for the year. This here is actually how much goods it actually purchased during that course of that year at basically this price. And as you can see, as funding increased, so did the value of purchase of care. With that, an average monthly cost for a client beneficiary is only $468.25 versus what Medicaid spends out. This makes perfectly good sense. Look at it for a cost of the year. That's an outlay for 1 year compared to what Medicaid pays out. So this is, in other words, it cost effectively comes in and buys your health insurance for you at a much reduced cost. AICP eliminates potential HIV AIDS costs for Florida Medicaid programs and prevents the transfers of these costs from the private sector to other publicly funded programs, like the AIDS Drug Assistance Program, Ryan White, and or public hospital or clinics. What it does is it gives you the private health insurance, and it frees up these other programs so that other people who are in need can access them without, well, I hate this word, without wait lists, unfortunately. AIC improves client quality of health and returns approximately a third of all its annual disenrolled clients back to the Florida workforce. And I'm going to add with this, with insurance. Individuals who can't afford to pay their monthly health insurance premiums because they can no longer work, this is how the qualifications. Low income and employed individuals can apply for AICP as well. AICP also adds funds allowed to open Floridians who meet all the following requirements: a diagnosis of AIDS or HIV symptomatic, meet eligibility requirements for the Bureau of HIV/AIDS Patient Care Program, currently covered by private health insurance and willing to sign all documentations. Client copays and deductibles are covered, up to $1,200 a year for copays, deductibles $2,500 a year, and of course premium payment limit is $750 per month. Pretty good deal. There was a wait list, as I said earlier, in 2012. The wait list is now open. It is open as an open enrollment, and qualified AICP clients should still be referred to AICP at their time by their case management agencies. And okay, these are just basically enrollees giving a little testimony here on how the program helped them. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for the help of AICP gives me by paying for my private health insurance. Without this assistance, I would not have health insurance, much less be alive and well today. And I just did a 20-minute program in 5 minutes. Here's my